On June 30th of 2016, a tweet was published that said, TBT to Halloween when I dressed as the Babadook, but my friend's house had more of a grown-ups drinking wine vibe, and a picture of someone dressed as the Babadook. This tweet was by a writer named Katie Dippold. It is a funny tweet many people have seen. Now, Katie Dippold has plenty of writing credits. She wrote on Mad TV, she worked on Parks and Recreations, wrote that movie The Heat. But I do think that Babadook tweet might be the perfect distillation of what is so fun about a new show created by Katie Dippold that I have watched and recommended to everyone I know, called Widow's Bay. Now, I've done this a lot, recommended shows to people, shows that I think they would like, shows that they have not heard of before, and I have never had this hit rate of A, people who have not heard the show exists. And that, I would say, is largely probably the fault of Apple TV Plus and their strategy, which I imagine is something like, don't promote the first season that much, but then if it's a hit, we'll promote the second season a lot. So it's definitely the show at least people have heard of. And at the same time, it's the show that every single person who I have recommended it to has come back to me in a week and told me it's the best new show of the year. Widow's Bay is a 10-episode, single season, as of right now, series on Apple TV+. And it follows the mayor of a small New England island town who's trying to turn the town into a Martha's Vineyard-esque tourist location. But the problem is, the town is clearly haunted by all kinds of different ghosts and monsters and curses and everything. And while the mayor knows that people in town believe this, he does not. So he charges ahead trying to turn the island into a tourist destination, while dealing with the fact that this island is pretty much just evil. The horror comes from the fact that the island is haunted by different kinds of spirits, each one taking inspiration from a specific horror trope or even a horror movie or television show. And not enough that they're parodies, but enough that when it starts moving, you realize, oh, this is what we're doing here. That's fun. But none of the horror bits are too scary. And this is coming from someone who didn't used to watch very much horror stuff, but recently between Obsession, Weapons, I don't know, Nope, I feel like there is a lot of fun stuff out there that isn't just trying to get cheap scares out of you. If this was too scary, trust me, I'd probably still stick with it because I really enjoy this show, but it is not that scary. It is well made, it is well put together, it's not trying to be scary at all times. It's also not trying to be funny at all times. It is a comedy, and I've seen a lot of people compare it to Parks and Rec, which makes sense, especially because Katie Dippold also wrote for Parks and Rec, and a lot of the comedy in Parks and Rec and Widow's Bay comes from the kooky residents or the quirky history of the town.
Was there cannibalism?
No.
Well, the article behind you. Forced inside the church, they immediately turned to cannibalism.
I don't think that's right.
But I would say the characters in Widow's Bay feel far more grounded, which I think you need to make the horror stuff feel dangerous. But so that's the vibe of the show. It's horror, but it's not that scary. It's comedy, but it's not too funny. And like I said, it is about the mayor of a town in the middle of tourist season, trying to turn his town into the next big New England destination, but having to deal with the fact that it's haunted by everything. The sentence I use to explain it to everyone is this. It is like Jaws. But if the main character of Jaws was the mayor from Jaws, and he didn't believe sharks exist, but every 20 minutes, he bumps into another shark. The writing crew for the show is great. It's full of people that have written for funny television shows, funny comedians, improvers, sketch comedians, all the people you want for something like this. You got Colton Dunn, Neil Casey, Mackenzie Dorr, and Bobak Asfarjani worked on WandaVision. The directors are also stacked. 2 episodes are directed by Andrew DeYoung, who directed Friendship and The Chair Company. 2 episodes are by Samuel Donovan, who directed some of Utopia and Severance. 1 episode was directed by Ty West, the writer-director of the X-Pearl Maxine trilogy. And then 5 episodes were directed by Hiru Murai, who directed some Barry, some Legion, but mostly Atlanta. So that's what we're getting here. Friendship mixed with Atlanta, mixed with WandaVision, mixed with Parks and Rec, mixed with Severance, mixed with Pearl. And then obviously the cast is great. The 3 main characters are Stephen Root plays Wick. Everybody loves Stephen Root from Dodgeball and Barry and Office Space, King of the Hill. He plays the Quint of this Jaws trilogy, the cantankerous old man who warns everybody something's going to go wrong and turns out to be absolutely right. And then you got Matthew Rhys playing Tom Loftus, that's your mayor. I was not familiar with Matthew Rhys before. I have never seen The Americans, which seems like it's kind of his main thing. There's the dinosaur in 1 episode of Invincible. Seems like he's going to be a bigger player in that in the future. And he was on that Perry Mason show that I could never really get into. He is so great at playing both a guy who is trying his best and a guy who sucks. You have the perfect mix of sympathy and embarrassment for this guy. You want him to succeed because he does seem to genuinely want the best for the people of this town, but you know he's going to fail because he's too proud. And like a lot of great characters in TV, he thinks he's a lot smarter than he is. But like those two were two people I've heard of before. Even though I hadn't seen Matthew Rhys in very much stuff, I know he existed. I had never heard of the third lead of this show, Kate O'Flynn. She's British, seems like she does a lot of work on British TV. She plays Patricia, the second everyman character, like Mark. But Patricia's deal is she is way more likable, but incredibly awkward, for reasons that totally make sense as you go through the show. I only bring her up last because A, I was the most surprised by how much I liked this performance, like I did not see her coming, and B, while the episodes do tend to feature all of the main characters, you are able to separate them based on which character is the main character of that episode, and I would say the two episodes that are the Patricia episodes are my two favorite by a mile. I don't want to tell you too much more about the show. Goes in some very interesting directions. As of right now, I've seen the 9 released episodes. I have not seen the 10th. I would bet, just based on where we are now, the show is not going to end after the next episode at a place where we can't get more Widow's Bay. I am hoping that this show is successful and they get a second season, because everybody that I have recommended the show to loves it, and it doesn't feel like really anything else on TV. I know from my description of it, you're thinking, oh, is it kind of like What We Do in the Shadows? That's kind of a horror comedy. No. What We Do in the Shadows is a what if bizarre characters were dropped into a recognizable normal world. I'm using air quotes because some of the things that happen in that show are pretty crazy. But most of the crazy things that happen on that show are vampire-related things, right? It is supposed to take place in a recognizable version of Staten Island, whereas Widow's Bay is a couple of normal people that are dropped into a crazy Stephen King novel with all kinds of different monsters and curses, and usually ones that evoke this series' maybe central theme, which it seems like in a post-COVID world is not that unusual, but isolation and loneliness. These are characters that are on an island. They cannot leave the island. They are incredibly lonely. And over the course of their adventures, dealing with the truth about the island, they're able to come together and learn about themselves. But a lot of the great horror of the last couple of years seems to be motivated very much by loneliness. Even just the recent stuff, Backrooms, Obsession. Widow's Bay for me has become the chant the show as you come down the stairs because a new episode is on, and that is the first thing you're going to do. And I want to be very clear, I'm not sponsored by Widow's Bay. I do not know anybody on the show. It's just a show that I'm really enjoying, that everybody I've recommended to has also enjoyed, and, like everything on streaming these days, one I hope a lot of people get interested in so that it can get a second and third season, because once it does, I think it really will pick up steam. You know, this feels like the kind of show that could really benefit from winning Emmys. It feels like exactly the kind of show that should get nominated for Best Comedy, as opposed to a lot of other, like, short shows, but ones that aren't very funny. Widow's Bay is committed to comedy, and I think if they're able to get the second season renewal, and who knows when you're listening to this, maybe it's already happened, but either way, so watch it, because as I'm recording this, 9 out of 10 episodes are out. You can binge this thing in a weekend, and you will be ready for the finale with all the rest of us. You'll get to recommend the best new show of the year to all your friends. I don't do this a lot. Just go completely out of my lane and pick a show and tell everybody they gotta watch it. So trust me when I say this is one of those shows. And listen, when you're done with Widow's Bay, you might want to check out a different series. It's called Gods and Monsters. It's by Curious Archive, and it's about the connections between these mythological creatures like Cthulhu or the devil, and how culture, and specifically how pop culture, have shaped that mythology. For instance, the first episode is about monsters from the ocean, something that could be relevant to a TV show set on an island, who knows. And if you want to watch Gods and Monsters, along with all my videos early and ad-free, you can find it exclusively on this video sponsor, Nebula. Nebula is a subscription streaming platform that I and a bunch of other YouTubers you probably already love helped to create. First thing that's important, all of our videos go up there early and ad-free. So if you want to be the first person to see one of my Nando V movies or Nando Cut videos, Nebula is for you. And then there are series like Jetlag or Tom Scott's England, where they go up on Nebula a week before they go anywhere else. Then we also have Nebula exclusive series of videos, like Tom Nicholas has a series called Slow News Day. Captain Midnight has a series called Showrunners, where he looks at different people that have created television shows. The first episode is about Rod Serling in The Twilight Zone. The second episode is about Vince Gilligan in Breaking Bad. Looks at the journey of how they got to where they were and how that shaped the series they would showrun. And then Curious Archive's Gods and Monster series looks at these different legendary creatures from religion and mythology and talks about how the ideas of those creatures has evolved over time and they've turned into pop culture characters. So you can find all that great stuff exclusively on Nebula. And a year of Nebula is already a steal at $60 a year. That is $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get Nebula for just $2.50 a month. That is $30 for the year. It's an awesome deal. Go check it out. I guarantee there is a creator you already love who's part of Nebula. And if you spend some time on Nebula, I bet you'll find your new favorite creator. After me, of course. Your second favorite creator because I'm your favorite. Don't correct me. Again, that is go.nebula.tv/thenandocut. Enjoy the show. That's all I got. See you around.